Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us once again for this week's episode of Mondays with Mark. Just want to go through our usual housekeeping announcements as we get started. We do ask that throughout the entire program, if you could keep your microphone muted, just so we don't get any feedback from our guests and our hosts, that would be great. If you have any questions or anything you wanted to bring up, feel free to use the little chat function that's up top there. You can go ahead and type it in to the chat, or you can use the little smiley face with the hand raised next to it emoji up there, and you can raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can go ahead and ask your question verbally as well. But other than that, we thank you for joining us and want to turn it over to our host, our district director here for the SBN Rhode Island, Mark Hayward.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Great day for everybody today. I think we're getting a little rain outside, so that means that a little liquid sunshine out there, which is good because we've had great weather throughout the summer. And today, we talk about contractors. They need good weather in order for them to do what they have to do. It's funny, and it's quite ironic, but Kerrie Bennett has really had a career that's expanded many different areas. You've been in education, you've been in the private sector, you've also been a press secretary for both Senator Rhode and Congressman Kennedy. So it really gives you a holistic view as to what the state's all about and how to interact with a lot of individuals who are members of organizations. And I think, Kerrie, that's really good. And I'm really delighted to have you today because there are a lot of questions out there about what is the Associated General Contractors? What do they do? How do they do it? Who do they do it with? And I think we're going to get a lot of questions answered today. So welcome to the program.
Thank you.
And just tell me, what is the Associated General Contractors?
So the AGC of Rhode Island, we are the state chapter for the National AGC, Associated General Contractors of America, which is called the Construction Industry Association. We advocate in Rhode Island, this chapter advocates for the commercial construction industry, and that means the vertical construction. We have a few construction trade associations in the state. There's Construction Industries of Rhode Island, known as CERI. Those are the road builders, and we work very closely with them. Then AGC, and we are predominantly union-based, but we do have members who are non-union. And then there's also the Rhode Island Associated Building Contractors, Rhode Island ABC, and that is typically more merit and open shop building. And then we also do a lot of work with John Marcantonio's group, the Rhode Island Home Builders Association. And then there are a few other subcontractor associations too that we work with. But again, we're mostly the commercial construction, private and public. So a lot of the school construction and the colleges and universities, and then also private office buildings and other things that you see. But I will say a lot of the road building and construction, which has been critical, and we are pulling from the same workforce. That's CERI. And so as everyone has seen, construction has been pretty busy in Rhode Island the past few years. So AGC is the state chapter. We provide services, training, networking for our member companies. And we're a small chapter. We have 2 employees. In other states, they're much bigger. And some other state chapters encompass all of that construction. We don't do that here. But we make sure we can connect members with whatever they need. So that, as you said before, I've had, several positions in the federal government and in the private and in higher ed. And what's great about Rhode Island is meeting folks and having that network of folks to be able to answer questions and provide answers and opportunities, or solve problems and challenges for our member companies. So being able to reach out to experts in the field, wherever, whatever topic or issue.
How many member companies do you have? And do you know, who would be prime the number that would be prime and the number that would be basically a small business?
I wouldn't want to say that number. We have regular full membership and then associate members. So regular full members previously had to be actual general contractors, able to bid on jobs, public or private work. Our board and our members have recently voted to change those bylaws, and we are now allowing subcontractors to become full regular members if they would like, and many are currently associate members. But if we are now starting to roll that out, and that's an opportunity for people to become more familiar with us. And we're doing that to evolve as well. A lot of the bigger companies are consolidating and getting bought out too. So we want, we're working to make sure we stay and adapt ahead of changing times. But we are associate members too, and that runs the gamut from insurance companies to attorneys to small businesses. And that's an opportunity too for people who are, connected to construction in Rhode Island that want the opportunity to, whether it's some of the discounts that we offer from our, again, as being part of a national association, or just online training. We even though we're a small chapter with only 2 people, we get tremendous opportunities for online courses and with expert, teachers and safety training that otherwise you might not have access to. And a lot of that now it was always available online, but obviously it's become more prevalent.
We're always looking for adding to the 8A portfolio, which is basically minority contractors. Is there anything that AGC can do to help us identify those? Because there are a couple. We do. I mean, most of the people who are in the 8A program right now, it's not a lot in Rhode Island, are basically contractors doing work at either Newport Naval Station or Coast Guard or Department of Veterans Affairs, which also includes the hospital. I mean, do you see a lot of minority contractors that are becoming part of your membership? And is there any potential for getting them, doing an educational program that would allow them to get into the 8A program?
So we've worked a lot with industry partners on this issue. I was part of the previous administration's task force for diversity in construction, and really working to see what we can do as a state to encourage more minority-owned businesses. And you know this, at least on the state side, besides the federal requirements on public projects, there are requirements for MBE and WBE participation. And we really want to have the breadth of companies available for those bidding, because again, my member companies are bidding against each other for a lot of this work. So making it competitive and having more companies available is benefits everyone. We've worked with the state, with the Office of Minority Business Enterprise for the state. And then we've done events in the past. We're probably looking to do some, hopefully this fall, with the Rhode Island Hispanic Chamber. And I put an invitation out for anyone. We're also happy to come. I can, myself, and I can find members who can talk very specifically about bidding on work or getting involved in that. So we are happy to attend events or attend a Zoom. Or host something if you want, if that's more of an interest. And again, that's a little bit more of a lead time, but we are always looking to attract more folks and get people involved in construction. We have a workforce development issue, and we work with the building trades closely on opportunities and building futures and Build RI to get more minorities into construction. We think it's a fantastic career for men and women, and looking to make sure it's accessible and people know about it too. And that is part of a challenge, cutting through some of the noise. People are inundated with lots of emails and information all the time. So reminding folks that this is a well-paying industry. You can learn a trade that you have for life. No one can take that from you. It's portable, so we want you to stay in Rhode Island and build your career here, but you can move. If you have to move, you can take it with you anywhere. And again, if you are so inspired or motivated, you can learn a trade and then start your own business. So there are really endless opportunities for tradesmen and women in the field.
Yeah, we would love to partner with you to get out a program about the benefits of being in the 8A program or minority-owned small businesses. And I think one of the issues that we always come across is the fact that not only trying to, because a lot of minority small businesses which are great contractors, but they're 1 or 2 people shop. and that, you know, having to do all of the paperwork that's associated with, and I'm sure that AGC also helps them in trying to get, you know, negotiate through the paperwork. But we really, I think there are potentials out there, and we need to pinpoint where we can be a benefit to those individuals. Having said that, the other issue on minority contractors just seems to be, and I've been here 40 years, which is a very long time, in that we try to get surety bonds. Surety is a huge issue where we many times see the generals covering the subs on surety. Do you do anything because SBA has a surety bond program. Do you do anything as it relates to surety and to try to get surety for those 1 and 2 person contractors that are currently having issues?
So we don't do that specifically, but what I always endeavor to do if someone reaches out and to provide information and explain the process of bidding and all the elements that go into it. Obviously, you know, for my members, again, there are competitive issues too, working, you know, as the head of a trade association, but we want to make sure that small companies and small contractors have all the information they need, and getting bonds and things like that. It's we hear about it constantly, but it is something that our members their feet are held to the fire in terms particularly for in public bidding, all of their requirements that they have to fulfill and file and numbers. So those are things that they can't get out of. But we find that educating people in small businesses and always looking for ways to help small businesses grow. So I think mentoring is one of those really important elements of, particularly for construction. Construction is a very highly regulated business. I mean, aside from registering with the Secretary of State and the Department of Business Regulation, you have OSHA regulations, you have DLT regulations. We want to make sure workers are safe, that they go home to their families at the end of the day. And then running a business on top of it, which, as you know, with just running, a business that isn't dealing with heavy equipment and safety and scaffolding and things like that. So you're adding a lot to it. And for some, like you said, for a small business, it can be a lot. So looking for ways to help people, I'm always looking to do that. And it might be also directing them to the Rhode Island SBA or to the Chamber of Commerce, or again, to members who might be an opportunity for someone to partner with.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Kerrie, that our SCORE volunteers, our chairman who's on the program today, he's listening to us. I mean, they are absolute assets to anybody who could take advantage of them. And that's really what we've talked about, the Small Business Development Center at the University of Rhode Island. These individual organizations provide a hand up, not a handout. And I think a lot of people who are looking to get to that next level really can utilize their expertise. And I have nothing but praise for both SCORE as well as the SBDC. And you mentioned workforce, which I don't mean to get off what you were saying, but workforce is huge. Everybody is saying, I can't find people. And I'm assuming that because you're on a workforce development board, and is that what you said, Kerrie?
I'm not on a board right now, but again, it's an issue where we're constantly dealing with it and working with state agencies and with industry partners to find ways to attract young people into construction. As you know, it's not an easy industry, and it takes time to learn. And we find I don't know if you've had Andrew Cortez on before with Building Futures. That's a pre-apprenticeship program. We fund them and do a lot of work where they're bringing in people. We do find more success with young adults who have a little experience, have tried school, and are able to then kind of focus and say, all right, we're really ready to make a career decision and learn something. So that's seems to be around 25, 26 years old, seems to be the sweet spot right now. But we're trying to entice young people even earlier than that to go into the trades.
And the wages are fairly high. Is that not correct?
They're much higher than the median. I think, what did I find? In Rhode Island, I would know, just for point of reference, that construction in Rhode Island, it's about 4% of the Rhode Island GDP. And there are about 21,000, 22,000 employees in construction in Rhode Island. And that's still down though from 2006, 2007, when the economy crashed and housing and everything stopped. So we've been playing catch up for a really long time. And now we do have people getting pulled up to Boston where sometimes wages are a little bit higher and work and things like that. So everyone's competing with it. It's a struggle.
Do you go out and speak to individuals in high schools? Because we don't have a lot of programs across the state that encourage trade, going into the trades versus going to college. And I'm always out there saying, hey, listen, you got a choice. You can go into a trade and possibly make as much or more than an individual who goes to college and who gets a degree and who's, kind of stuck in this lane. But I mean, it really, I just want to relay we went to Block Island, and which we do every single year. We bring over lenders. Secretary Tanner came over with us. The regional administrator came over, and we heard from the Block Island town manager as well as members of the council and the private sector. And the one thing that we took away from this whole visit this year, because we've been doing this since 1993, was we need a plumber, we need a carpenter, we need an electrician on island, because we don't have them. And the problem that we're having, and this goes back to that workforce development and encouraging people to get into the trades, says we have to go outside, off island. And when we bring people on from off island, the expense and the cost goes tremendously higher. So they asked us to help them, and I'm reaching out to John Marco Antonio to try to get this little piece at least looked at, that we can encourage those who are currently in the high school system on Block Island to potentially look at a trades career versus looking at something else. And I know, Kerrie, that you're running into the same issues, but that's just a small sample of the kind of things that people say, why do we want to go into the trades? Because money is there.
Well, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, and I'll expand on it, and and also bring in my experience having worked in higher education, both at Brown University and at URI. Higher education is great, but some young people aren't ready for it right away, and it's definitely not for everyone. And what's great about going into the trades, particularly the union trades, and I'll make a plug for that right now, is that, again, you can go into it and get paid to be trained. You get an annuity, you have benefits, and again, you have a higher median salary than most other careers. You are able, and I tell people all the time, you can do that and then still go to school later if you decide that you still want to get a degree, whether it's an associate's or a bachelor's or an MBA or change careers. It doesn't preclude anyone, and the opportunities to attain a degree now, online and during the evening hours or on weekends is greater than ever. I mean, I got my MBA from URI, and I went during the evening while I worked full time. It's hard and it's a challenge, but when you commit to it, you can do it. But again, going into the trades and, being able to graduate with a career with no debt is astounding nowadays. But I wouldn't want to say people shouldn't go to school and get a degree. It's something that, if it's important to you, you should do that. But I think the opportunity for both is there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And while I understand that you advocate for the union trades, I also advocate that people look at the potential of becoming a small business, because it gives you the flexibility beyond what you can think you can have. And then there are programs from the SBA that can help guide you through this small business entrepreneurship track. I mean, but to get that particular, electricians and plumbers and carpenters, and those are the kinds of things that there are more people of my age retiring than we have people coming up. I don't want to give away my age, even though I'm 66, but that's a whole other that's a whole other discussion. No, there's really there's a void there that we need to fill, which gets me back to what is your role in the construction in the Rhode Island economy? I mean, I know that you talked about the primes and the subs, but there's a lot of construction going on right now, is it not?
It seems like it to me, and I'm constantly, dodging traffic and figuring out routes to take so that I can get places on time. We know that the state and the federal government is finally investing in some infrastructure. We've had that issue for a long time here. School construction, Rhode Island AGC, we advocated for a lot of the funding and investments, and we do leave that sort of up to policymakers to decide what's important to invest in. We let them know what the economic impact will be. So we work with state leaders. We work closely with the Speaker's office and the Senate President's office, and again, answering questions from legislators, letting them know the economic impact. How many jobs will be created? How much money will go into the economy for all of these jobs? And again, they're creating jobs short term for construction, but then long term too. If you have, again, you have better buildings, you're saving money, and if you're building green, you're saving money on energy, more energy efficient buildings. And so it builds, all of this builds on each other. And by continually investing in public buildings, you're keeping them up to date. And that's sort of, what we're always looking at too. And that's, I think, a good example is the convention center, why that building still looks great. It still operates very well, because there's a continuing flow of money to make sure that those upgrades are done there.
What about private sector building? We also have a tremendous amount of that, don't we?
We do. And, private sector building, I'm not so privy to, again, kind of the competitive advantage of folks letting me know. But I know, when my members are busy and they're working on projects, and it's always fun to go to an event where, they're topping it off, or, a ribbon cutting for new construction. But yes, it's busy everywhere. And the shortage of workers.
Yeah, we keep coming back to the shortage of workers, because that's really, that's critical. The workforce, to have sufficient amount of people. Does that delay projects, Kerrie? I mean, so, because we see a lot of road construction out there, and if they don't have enough people, how, I hate to say, because there's one project, I live in Seekonk, I commute to East Providence all the time, which was my home for where I was born and raised. But I mean, there's one bridge out, and it takes me another 15 minutes because that bridge is out. I mean, and they keep saying it's going to take longer and longer. Is that one of the issues we're dealing with today?
It's definitely one of the issues that we're dealing with. I guess, what would I say? If, again, we come back to workforce and making sure, people have access to.
What about supply chain? Supply chain is a huge issue across small business, no matter where you are. What about the construction industry regarding supply chain issues?
So, and that's been a problem as well. And I've been talking to some of the folks at Gilbane that work on that and kind of report out. And AGC National too, we get reports and talking about how supply chain issues can increase the cost, because again, you're just delaying projects, and whether you can get that material or not. I think things were starting to open up a little bit, and hopefully it stays that way. But I know that there's still sometimes one little snarl. We've seen one little snarl somewhere, whether it's cargo ships or, roads and things like that. There's a trickle down effect there.
We recently had the SBA administrator in Rhode Island, and we did a couple of visits to small businesses that have a tremendous impact on the economy in Rhode Island as a whole. And the interesting thing, and I'm asking this question because I'm interested to know whether or not this occurs in your industry as well. The individual said, we went into the warehouse and it was filled, absolutely filled to capacity. So my question to the owner was, why do you have so much? Why have you become a hoarder? and the response, Kerrie, that I got was, we've got to get it when we can. We've got to keep it in our inventory, even though we don't need it today, because it impacts everything that we do 5 weeks, 10 weeks, or whether or not we tell a customer we can respond in 3 weeks, or we can respond in 20 weeks. So they are considering themselves as hoarders. So my question is, in the construction industry, you must be dealing with the same issues where people, some of your major companies, even small businesses, are becoming hoarders because they're grabbing stuff when they can get it.
Oh, I'm sure that's the case, but then I guess they're probably also with the challenge too of whether they have the space to store items like that. And again, in construction, a lot of that equipment is really large and takes up space. It's heavy. You have to have, different equipment to move things. So I'm sure it is the case. But again, that's also where our companies work really hard to, whether they're bidding on private work or public work. Obviously, when they're bidding, they're trying to go in as the most competitive price possible and keeping costs down for owners. And, an owner, whether it's state government, owner of a building, or, a private company, they are forecasting. So again, constantly, that's sharing information that I get from National AGC, who has an economist on board and a team of folks, and letting people know, trying to stay ahead of the curve, what's coming down the pike, where they might see a blip. And right now I was just reading some resources from AGC and talking about, what a recession might mean if that happens for construction. And so it's companies that can forecast, have the ability to do that. Can they all do that? I'm not entirely sure of the answer to that, but I'm sure to the degree that they can, they are. And then we also know, our former governor, the cabinet secretary, is working on, the chip issue. So again, I've heard of instances where, buildings things are going into place for space, but then it won't work until later when chips come in to get it up and running.
Yeah, and Matt, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. If you want to, you can raise your hand. Kerrie, we're actually down to only 3 minutes left. That's why I told you that the time absolutely flies. And from my perspective, having an economic background, we are in a recession. There's no question about that. You technically 2 quarters of negative growth gives a recession, but just looking at what small business is talking about and how they're reacting to it, which leads me to the next question, because I think a lot of from the construction industry, are they putting in their contracts, either with the federal or other contracts, inflation clauses? Because inflation is having a tremendous impact on even if they are hoarders, I'm not saying that they are, but seriously, inflation, if they try to go out and get that product 2 weeks later, like the cost of lumber went from here to there to here to here. It's crazy. Are they putting inflation clauses into new contracts just to protect themselves?
I'm sure some are. Again, I don't delve into that much detail with member companies in terms of their bidding, but I'm sure they're putting in protections or agreements or coming to agreements with owners in terms of pricing on materials. Because as you said, you might be bidding on something and your bid is picked and you're on board, but then prices shoot up and you're suddenly, you might not be able to do the work because the price of steel or lumber is too high, or generators or something like that. So I'm sure that is coming more into play, and we are seeing information coming how members can do that from attorneys and with contracts and things like that.
Yeah, we did have a comment in the chat. It says, Kerrie, I can help you with the MWBE, and certainly we want to help as well. I think if that would be great. We should touch base. If we get nothing from this program but a cooperative agreement so that we can move forward to help the minority small businesses, and how we get them surety bonds, and how we can get them, straightened out. Like I said, SCORE and the SBDC are absolutely phenomenal programs, and we want to utilize them. I really do think that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity here. And Kerrie, we're down to 1 minute left. So if there's anything you want to get in that you haven't got in, now's the time.
Yeah, no, I think, we're always looking to either partner with people. We work with a lot of organizations, and even if just getting to know someone, if someone wants to call and, grab coffee or lunch, that's a great opportunity if I haven't met folks before. And then I would be remiss if I didn't make a plug. We do have an upcoming golf tournament. We work every year with the Rhode Island Building Trades to do a golf tournament to benefit veterans. So post 9/11 veterans. It's a great time. I think we're at capacity for it, but if anyone's looking to do a sponsorship or a raffle item or T signs, that's September 1st at Pawtucket Country Club. So I did want to make a plug for that because it's a great chorus if you've never played it, and it's a great event. We try and do a few events supporting veterans as well. So it's a good opportunity for our member companies.
Great. Thank you very much, Kerrie, for being with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great educational process to get all the information from Associated General Contractors. Have a great day. We'll see you next week on Mondays with Mark.